Peace. This is Anton the Bum, aka the Benevolent Universal Magician. I know it's been a long time since you guys have heard or seen anything from me, and that is because I've been staying off social media because it's just not a good habit for me to be on there. But it's also part of my purpose and my mission to communicate with people, and so I have to find a balance. So you will be seeing a lot more of me. This entire year, I'm going in both with music and with whatever messages come to me. I will be sharing those a lot more frequently. I've been getting the messages the whole time since my absence. Just haven't been putting them out for that reason that I've been staying away from social media. But anyway, I'm finding the balance right now, and I'm doing what I have to do because I need to stay in contact with people in general in order to actually fulfill my purpose on this earth. So um, anyway, with that out of the way, this first message that I have for you is about today being New Year's and the fact that it's not actually New Year's at all. As we enter the Gregorian calendar 2023, we are getting closer and closer to the culmination of a crazy level of consciousness. We've been, since 2012, accelerating consciousness pretty rapidly, and then 2020 and since even more so, the speed at with which we are gaining lost information and understanding about things that we've been fooled about, and the veil being lifted off of a lot of the old paradigms that no longer hold up. Um, has It's been a beautiful thing, even though it seems too slow and that not enough people are catching on. But slowly but surely they are, and they will. And especially by the time we get to 2025, it's going to be on a whole nother level. So being that we're getting to that stage, I think it's time to address, for those of you who don't know yet, the fact that the Gregorian calendar itself is completely full of shit and that it's not New Year's at all, and I'll tell you why. So, first of all, just look at the natural life cycle of everything on this planet, right? The winter is a period of death, hibernation, whatever you want to call it, right? And everything kind of goes stagnant and dies off. And then right around mid to late March, as spring begins, everything comes back to life, right? It's a fresh start. Things start regrowing, and you know, spring is very clearly the actual beginning of the year, the beginning of spring. And every living thing on this earth follows that pattern, and it's just common sense. If we just followed our common sense on that, we would realize that this calendar is full of shit. But let's go a little further. All of the ancient civilizations that had supreme wisdom and understood astrology and understood the movements of the stars, the sun, the moon, the tides, and nature in general, they all knew that that was around the time where the year started. And they all ever get it twisted and think that because societies were ancient that they were inferior to us or that they were less advanced than us. In many cases, they were far more advanced because they had not been brainwashed as we have been and stripped of their knowledge. And since we have been, we are actually, in many ways, operating at a very unevolved level about many things, simply because we've been purposefully bamboozled and things have been hidden from us, things that people have known for millennia. So don't get that out of your mind, the fact that these old civilizations are primitive in the sense that they use the word primitive. They're primitive in the actual definition of the word, meaning that they came before most other civilizations. But the way they use primitive is as though there's a lack of intelligence or understanding or sophistication, and that is not the case at all. If anything, as I said, they were more advanced than us. So they all understood these things. And if none of that's enough for you, I understand. Very simply, all you have to do is look at the last few months of the year and then look at the root of the names of those months, right? So sept is clearly 7. These are all Latin roots, right? Which most of our language is based on Latin. Sept is clearly the 7th and not the 9th, right? Oct. What is oct? Octopus have 8 arms or tentacles or whatever. Octagons are 8-sided. So why is that the 10th month? Why is October the 10th month? Doesn't add up at all. So you should already be wondering what the fuck is going on, right? Nov, N-O-V, Noventa, all Latin, Italian, Spanish, N-O-V represents 9. So why is that the 11th month, right? Nueve, right? So none of it makes sense. Then we can move on to December. Decade. What is a decade? Decade is 10. What is decimal? A tenth. DEC across the board represents 10. There's no getting around that. You all know that. I know you all know that. So why is it the 12th month? Doesn't add up, right? That's because the Gregorian calendar came along, and not only did they stop the 28-day cycle, which the ancient civilizations knew was the actual way to calculate and represent a month, was by following the patterns of the moon, which evolves in 28-day cycles. But also they decided to add 2 months in the beginning, January and February, which just threw off the entire trajectory. So in actuality, the new year starts somewhere around March 21st, which is the spring equinox and the beginning of spring. And that's a much better way to gauge when the year begins for all of the reasons that I've mentioned. And I think, if nothing else, this should give you pause and make you question and want to think about why these inconsistencies are part of the Gregorian calendar and how did the Gregorian calendar come about. And there's plenty of research you could look up on your own without having to just trust my word for it that can shed light on all of that. So it's just time to stop going along with everything they tell us and start breaking down these old paradigms and understand that pretty much everything that we've been told is a lie and completely full of shit. And it's time to re-examine all these things for ourselves, for our own good, because it's throwing us off of our natural life cycle by following this bullshit ass timeline and believing that January 1st is a new year, right? Also, I don't give a shit if you want to still celebrate New Year's. Be my guest. Just know that when you're going out to get drunk and throw up on your new shoes, you're not doing so because it's a new year. And that's actually a blessing. Because why would you want to start your year in a drunken stupor? And the beautiful thing about understanding that that's not actually the new year, even if you decide to do that on January 1st because everybody else is doing it and you're used to doing it, or on December 31st or whatever, right? Then what that means is that when the actual new year starts, which is March 21st in that area, you don't have to start it in a drunken stupor because you haven't been conditioned to think that that's what you're supposed to do on that day. You haven't been told that that's what's normal to do, is to go get blackout drunk and, you know, wake up feeling absolutely disgusting to begin your new year. And I'm not speaking from judgment. This is what I did my whole entire life until I left the alcohol alone. So I'm not trying to preach to you or anything. Like, enjoy yourself. But when the new year starts, you can start that in a healthy way and begin your year in a much better light, because like I said, you're not programmed or conditioned to feel like you have to drink on that day in the beginning of spring. It's a much nicer time to be outside and not feel like you need to be drunk to do so anyway. So just some things to think about. I'll be in contact with you guys a lot more frequently, as I mentioned, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace and love.